Welcome to this video. This is our anniversary week. Friday, March 14th will be our 61st anniversary. How we done this? I don't know. That's what we're trying to share with you on this videos. One thing, I have never gotten over the wonder that Tom Suter chose me. I mean, after 61 years, it's still a joy and a delight, and it's a wonder. So if you have read Gary Chapman's book, you will remember the chapter chapter 3 on falling in love. And you know, falling in love is a wonderful experience. Falling in love, and then people fall out of love. What happens? So there's a statement in that chapter that says the passionate love, the falling in love part that we think we're going to have forever, goes away in about 2 years for most people. So Tom and I have spent a lifetime, 61 years, to keep our love alive, and not the same. Everything changes, but so Tom's going to tell us about love. What is love?
Well, love is a many splendored thing, right? Well, anyway, the dictionary has all kind of definitions for love. Adoration, affection, passion, a flame. I mean, on and on. There are so many definitions of love, and I think that's why a lot of people have difficulty understanding what love is all about. Well, I don't think love is a definition. I think love is a demonstration. It's showing another person that you care about them deeply. Barb had mentioned that she's never gotten over the wonder that I chose her. Well, I mean, that's kind of mutual. She chose me and I chose her, and we still do that every day. It's a choice that we make to love one another. And yes, we have difficult days just like everyone else, and some days it's that choice that just holds you together, because you know, emotions come and go, feelings come and go, and that's the difficulty that a lot of married couples have, is that they base their marriage relationship on how they feel. And some days you don't feel married, and you don't feel like you want to be married.
And some days, I've always said, my mama said there'd be days like this. Remember, if you've heard all of our videos, or the questions and discussion things, you know, Ruth Graham was asked one time, so somebody said, so you have a perfect marriage? And she said, no, we don't have a perfect marriage. If one of us was perfect, we wouldn't need the other. And he said, the reporter said, so you've never considered divorce? And she said, divorce never, murder yes.
Well, she's talking about Ruth Graham. You may not know who Ruth Graham is, but that was Billy Graham's wife. Right. And so, yeah, they had difficult days just like everybody else has difficult days. So what we're trying to do is to share with you how we make it through the difficult days, so that love is basically the very foundation of all your relationships.
So, and as he said, love is a demonstration, and I think the biggest demonstration of that is learning to speak the love language of your spouse. And we'll share an example or two of that in the book this time. So, but to truly show you love somebody, I think, is learning to speak their language. And sometimes we don't know. So it's been a process for some of you, if you've read the book, to find out that love language. So you were going to tell us about the man.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny illustration, but it's like the boy who wrote his girlfriend a little note, and he said, I love you so much, I'd climb the highest mountain for you. I would swim the deepest ocean for you. I would hike through the driest desert for you. And then at the end, he said, I'll see you tonight if it doesn't rain. Well, it's one thing to say the words of love, that I will do thus and so, and I love you so much. But if you don't demonstrate it, there are cloudy days coming, it may rain. And you go through the rain, and you end up on her doorstep in the rain. And you can't just say life is always going to be wonderful. It is wonderful. Life is wonderful, but it has its cloudy days. And you have to work through those. And the commitment to love one another and speak one another's language. We've addressed this in other videos, and so we don't want to go over this again and again, but it is very important that you learn how to speak her language or his language.
Chapman says, when an action doesn't come naturally to you, it is a greater expression of love. So I'm sure all of you have done things sometimes you didn't want to do, but I guess it's how you do them. For us, I love flea markets and odd stores and some thrift markets and things like that. Tom does not care for and antique shops. I love to go to old antique shops. He doesn't care for that, but sometimes when he goes with me, or he says we're driving, and he says, "There's one, Barb. You want to stop?" I know that's extra special for me. He's just showing me that he loves me. He's demonstrating his love for me. And then there are times, our anniversary, like I said, our anniversary is this week, Friday. So when we were in Vienna, it was our 41st, maybe our 42nd anniversary. And we lived in Vienna 8 years. So we were going to go. Our anniversary happened on a Sunday. So after Sunday, we had packed an overnight bag, and we were going to find this wonderful little bed and breakfast or pension. And it was just going to be glorious, because that's how I expect things. So
well, we didn't realize as much as we understand now that Sunday in Austria or anywhere in Europe pretty much is an off day. And so everything was closed. We tried to find a place to stay, and they were closed. We tried to find restaurants, and they were closed. We were out in the country. We weren't in Vienna, so we drove for 3 or 4 hours, and we were very discouraged and disappointed.
Frustrated. It was our
anniversary. Yeah, frustrated is a mild term. And so we ended up back home that night.
We probably didn't have a good anniversary.
It wasn't the best, I'm sure, for Barb's sake and mine too. I don't remember us having a big discussion over it. It's life, and that's how things happen sometimes, and you just have to go with it and make the best of it.
We were talking last night, and then this came up. I don't remember many of the anniversaries we've shared. If we've taken big trips or, because, we've never been one to really observe the day on the day,
We don't take cruises and things like that, but we've always made that day special, and that's one we'll always remember.
But we remember that one as maybe not a good one. Chapman mentions love being something that causes you to feel good about yourself. It helps your self-worth. It gives you confidence and security. And these things are vital to our very being. I can imagine if Tom Suter hadn't loved me initially, I was a timid, afraid, insecure girl. I was 18 when we married. So, his love has done that for me. And that's what love is to do for us. It can't solve all of our problems and meet all of our needs, but it can make us to know we're worth something to somebody is imperative. And I was reading about studies this week on women and low self-esteem. And one study cited that 70 to 80% of women struggle with low self-esteem. They tell of experiencing issues of self-worth and confidence. They don't know, they're just not confident in who they are. And you think, could that be love? Worldwide, one statistic I read said 85% of the world's population, that's men and women too, I'm sure, say they struggle with self-worth, to knowing who they are. And that's huge. That's a huge number.
Yeah, that's obviously it points out that the greatest need we have is to be loved and accepted as a person of worth. And I think that's vital. I've often used the illustration in marriage counseling of a diamond in the rough. We all know that diamonds are found in a rough condition. They're not cut and polished like you see in the jewelry store. And I see Barb as, when I met her and she met me, we were both really diamonds in the rough. I don't know if we understood that principle then, but as we've grown in our marriage relationship, I see my responsibility is to hold her up as a diamond in the rough and look at all the facets and parts of her life that can be polished and turned into a perfect jewel. And she has to do the same for me. It's not criticizing her for her insufficiencies or whatever, but it's seeing those things and polishing and complimenting and encouraging and building up that makes her into a jewel of a person. And we've tried to do that for each other. And I see her now not as a diamond in the rough. She is a beautiful diamond. And
they're expensive.
Yeah, you are that.
So, but that statistic of low self-esteem and issues of self-worth tells us that many people, and I didn't get, it doesn't break down of how many were married or single or whatever, but it does say that a lot of people don't feel loved. They don't feel really loved. And we're going to tell you one of the stories in a minute, but so to demonstrate, I mean, I guess we cannot say enough that the importance is to feel loved, and one of the ways you feel loved is for someone to speak your language. And a lot of this has to do with personalities, because we have different personalities, we have different languages, and we'll talk more about personalities later. And Tom can give you some ideas for tests you can have, but that's also important as how you relate to one another. And you need to learn all this. There's so much to learn about marriage. And it's not, you don't just fall in love and everything's going to be beautiful forever. And that's a mistake a lot of people make, and they don't really put the amount of energy and work and study into loving somebody. And love is the unconditional acceptance of one person to another. And there again, it talks about love being a demonstration of love.
Well, you know, you probably picked up by now, we are both from a Christian background, and I have been a pastor for 50 plus years, and Barb has been a teacher and a mentor to women. And so, you know, the Bible says that love is kind, love is patient, it's long-suffering, and it indicates that love is an action. It is an attitude and an action. And love demonstrates itself. In fact, the Bible says God demonstrated his love for us in that he sent his son. So love from the very foundation is a demonstration of our care, affection, all those definitions for another person. And I think that is so important to understand from the very foundation of a marriage.
There's a story in the book in chapter 11 about a couple named Norm and Jean, and they drove 3 hours to meet with Gary Chapman. So I think that tells me that they loved each other, but she knew there was a problem. And so as they met with him, and she talks and tells what's going on, and it seems so bad, and she just says everything's the same. We do the same thing, and she told the schedule. It was so routine and so exact. And then he asked Norm what would he say about it, and Norm says, I don't know what she means when she says she doesn't know if I love her. He said, I do everything. And you went through the list of cleaning the house and cooking the meals and washing the dishes and everything. And Gary Chapman, in the book, he says, I immediately thought, what in the world does this woman do? Because this man does everything. And so so she was crying, and so they talked through that. So Chapman immediately knew. No, then he asked her, so what if he's doing all that for you, what's wrong? And she says, I can do all those things. I just want him to come and sit on the couch with me and let's talk. She said, we haven't had a conversation in 35 years. Now that's huge. So anyway, it didn't take Mr. Chapman, long to realize Norm had the gift of service, because he went on to say, he says, everything I do, I'm doing it because I love her. And she only wanted his time. And we've shared that with you before when we talked about the gifts, but this is just an indication of a couple who, it was such a misunderstanding. I think you'll know, they truly loved each other, but I mean, he was doing all these things, and she was suffering terribly because all she wanted was to sit on the couch and have a conversation. She talked about their schedule, and it was so exact and routine. And he talked to friends sometimes in the car when they'd go to dinner, but she said it stopped immediately. So Dr. Chapman tells them about the service and the love languages and quality time. And they evidently had a good session, because he checked back with them in 2 months. And they said their lives had changed dramatically, and they were on their second honeymoon. And we could say, that's a miracle. And in a way, it is a miracle. But it was just them learning to speak each other's language. It was learning. I mean, he was demonstrating love, so you can demonstrate love in a service or giving or affirming words, but then you have to speak the right language to your spouse. So in 2 months they were on a second honeymoon. After 35 years, they did not understand.
I think that's a problem in a lot of marriages, and that's why we're making these videos, is try to help people understand that it's important to learn your spouse's love language and then speak it. Barb's love language is quality time, sitting on the sofa like we are right now. And she loves this. And mine is physical touch. That's why I'm touching her now. And if we speak each other's language, then your self-worth is elevated. And it's saying, I love you, but it also says you are a very important person. And when you feel that way about another, they begin to feel that way about themselves. So that's why it's important that we speak each other's language.
Tom and I have worked at staying in love. I mean, realistically staying in love, not the passion we had when we were 18 and 19. So our next video is going to be on
Passion, keeping passion alive in your marriage.
and that's not passion, that's not sexual passion, although that is very important. But we have an acrostic for passion. Excuse me. And we'll do that on the next video. But it is important to keep love alive, to work at that. Tom and I, one thing we did when we had the 4 children at home, when they were small and, all in grade school, we would make it a practice to go away.
For overnight, usually.
Just one night usually, sometimes 2. And it was good, it was easy for us because Tom's mother lived close and she would come to the children. Some people can't do that. But we did that and for the sole purpose of falling in love again, like we were. And it worked. I mean, we could tell you some funny stories.
Many honeymoons.
Many honeymoons. But even if you don't have a grandmother close by or a friend, if you somehow can take 3 or 4 hours in one afternoon just alone with the purpose of falling in love again. Sometimes we go off for 3 or 4 hours now, and I think we've been gone all day, because when your focus is on each other or just being together or being alone, it really can strengthen a relationship. And it is it's very important to keep love alive. And I think we've kept it alive. I wanted to read you this I found this week. One of the most amazing gifts in life is to find someone who knows all your flaws, your differences and mistakes, yet still loves everything about you. And that's unknown. Somebody said that, but how true that he knows all my badness, but he still loves me.
Well, that works both ways.
And
that's really a good definition of a marriage, is to know each other intimately and know all the faults and cracks and whatever, and still love one another as we're commanded to do.
But there are a few steps, and we'll share more of those. But one of them is just maybe this week to think about love being a demonstration. Whatever you say or do for somebody, if you're speaking their language, shows them you love them, shows them their worth, and then they are secure in that love. And that's the beginning of a beautiful marriage.
Show your love.